Hey guys, welcome to the channel. As you see in the thumbnail, what if Naruto was son of Thor and Harem with Asgardian? If you like to hear uncensored version of this and other stories, then I'll give you link of my Patreon. Go support and follow the This Page Has Been Abandoned 93 for writing that awesome fanfic, and also make sure to comment on this story. Link in the description. Let's start this video. No! Minato, please don't do this. Please! Kushina begged the man she loved as he held her son. Minato sighed, knowing the way to save his village was to leave this realm and return home. His name in this realm was Namikaze Minato, a random orphan raised after the Third War in the hidden continent of elementals, but in reality he was Thor, the god of thunder. The reason for his being here was of his father's, Odin's, idea of furthering his knowledge of his preferred other world before he took the throne in Asgard. As he grew up and trained in the arts of this continent's shinobi, he met a beautiful red-headed girl. Like with some redheads he had been with in the past, she was rather hot-headed and easily angered, slightly reminding him of himself before his first journey to Earth. Months ago, they were engaged. He subtly placed a mark on her for Valkyrie to bring her to Asgard upon her death, and shortly afterwards, he discovered she was with child. He couldn't be happier to return to Odin with a son and wife, possibly bringing one last smile to Odin before he falls to the final Odin sleep. But now he was in a trouble. His half-brother Loki, god of evil, had discovered him and sent a beast of his own creation to destroy all he cared for. He knew the only way to defeat the beast was to seal it away, thereby teleporting it to Asgard where he can properly dispatch it. But upon his first try, he learned that the fiendish god of evil had prepared for this outcome, and prevented him from sealing the beast within himself, seeing as he was the only one who could do it, and Loki knew how he would rather die than sacrifice another. Thor had come to a hard decision to use his newborn son. Kushina, love, my wife, the mother of my darling son, I am sorry, but I must, Thor said, dropping the illusion of his Minato character, something he had shown to Kushina long ago, and he cupped her cheek. Do not fret, my love. I will make sure Heimdall will keep his all-seeing eye on the both of you. But sealing the demon within Naruto? She asked him, worry and concern in her aqua-green eyes. Naruto, please. Someone else, Thor, please. You know I cannot ask another for what I am to do, the god of thunder replied quietly, brushing the tears from her eyes as he put his cover back up. I will always love you, Kushina, and I await when you come to me. That said, Thor used his disguised hammer Mjolnir, which looked like a three-pronged kunai, to teleport himself back to battle. He then used a technique he learned to summon forth a large toad. Gamabunta took note of the situation and unsheathed his blade, his eyes narrowing at the Kyuubi no Kitsune. Is it that time already, my lord? Gamabunta asked, his eyes still locked on the feral demon fox. What is that bundle in your hands? It is my son Mi-Air, Thor whispered to the boy as he brushed his hands gently along the cheek of the peach-blonde fuzz babe. With a smile on the boy's head, Thor knew now how his father felt when he first banished Thor to Midgard. Thor closed his eyes and whispered again, I'm sorry, Naruto, become strong, my son. He then held Naruto in front of him as he activated the technique, a large flash of light appearing as he called forth the demon Mephistopheles in the form of the Japanese death god, Shinigami, and assisted him in taking the demon from this realm. The light reached far across the lands and was visible many miles away, as Loki noted with much disdain. He smirked, however, knowing he had once again taken his brother from his second home and cursed his brother's offspring to a life of woe. He blinked, however, when the attention turned to a sobbing woman that cursed his name over and over again. Damn you! God damn you, Loki! Kushina shouted through her tears. The god of evil narrowed his eyes, displeased with how she was treating his name as though he were dirt. It wasn't his fault that Thor was too noble to ask another to take his place, now was it? With a finale evil act to bestow upon this corner of Midgard, Loki snapped his fingers and gave the red-headed beauty a heart attack, unknowingly sending her to his former home. Thor had finished slaying the demon on the Rainbow Bridge, smirking as it fell over the side, dead. The god of thunder turned to ask Heimdall how his wife and son were when the guardian of the Rainbow Bridge came forward with Kushina in his arms. What trickery is this, Heimdall? Thor roared. She was not to come until her time ended. I'm sorry, Thor, the guardian said solemnly. Her time came and went whilst you battled the beast. Nash was to care for Naruto. Thor cried as he took the redhead from the Guardian and cradled her in his hold. He looked down at her, brushing his fingers down her cheeks. She was too young, she wasn't ready to me somewhat of him. The babe now rests in the arm of the old man named Sarutobi, Heimdall said softly, placing his hand on Thor's shoulder. For what it is worth, I shall continue to keep my eyes on him. We could send the warriors 3 down to guard him if you wish. Nay, Thor said somberly, shaking his head as he looked down at his bride. 2 shall go to father for advice. Thank you for keeping watch over my son, Heimdall. Of course, the Guardian said as he walked back to his post. On another note, she is very gorgeous. Thor smiled as he walked back to his father's chambers, his eyes locking on the tired face of his wife. Indeed she is, indeed she is. A human turned Asgardian. The enchantress sneered as she glared down at her beloved Thor cradling a former human as he spoke to his father. How dare he, how dare he! I throw myself at his feet countless times, and he continued to toss me aside. She bats her human eyes at him once and his will crumbles disgraceful. And now that you've heard my tale, father, I was hoping for your infinite wisdom to grant me some advice, Thor concluded, Kushina still resting in his arms. He sat with his father in their own private study, one Thor had designed after many he had seen while in Midgard. Harem, you are indeed in a predicament, my son, Odin said, his hand scratching his beard. Booty, believe you already know of the way to help your son. How were you raised to be such a good man, not god or king, but a man? I believe mother had something to do with that, Thor commented jokingly, making the All-Father laugh aloud. Aye, she did indeed, Odin said quietly before looking at his son again. If you really must ask me for advice, then you have forgotten more about yourself than you know. Take my words and use them, son. There is no more I can do now. Thank you, father, Thor replied with a small bow. Odin smiled and gestured to Kushina. Be sure she is awake next time she is in my presence, the All-Father said with a hint of amusement in his voice. Thor chuckled and nodded. I shall, father, the god of thunder said before he carried Kushina to their chambers. Thor laid Kushina on his bed, making sure she was comfortable, before he went to think on the Rainbow Bridge. He held Mjolnir in his right hand by its strap, slowly spinning it as he thought on how to help his son. A thrum came from his hammer and Thor looked at it in confusion before it pulsed again. The god of thunder stopped spinning his hammer and gripped it firmly. An image, not a voice or some valuable information, came to his mind. The image of a hammer that looked of a cross between a hammer and an axe came to his mind. Knowing what to do now, Thor took to the sky and flew towards Ulik's forge. Ah, the young god of thunder returns with my prized hammer, the troll said with a smirk as the slightly smaller god walked into his forge. What can I do for you, Thor, Odin's son? Finally through with battling with a hammer? Nay, good smith, Thor said waving his hand. I do however request you forge another weapon for me. Oh ho ho. Ulik chuckled out, turning to face the god of thunder. And what is this request, per se? Please say it be a good challenge of my skills. Oh, it may be, my good troll, Thor replied with a smile. I request you make a hammer with one side being that of an Asgardian axe. Is that all? A shame, then, Ulik sighed out. At Thor's confused face, the troll elaborated as he turned and began ruffling through scraps. I was visited by the prophetess long ago, told I would one day forge weapons solely for the children of the All-Father. One in particular would be unique. It would be a hammer with an axe forged in the furnaces of the orcs on one side, while the other would resemble my own forge hammer. Ah! I finally found the blasted thing. Ulik pulled said hammer out and turned to face Thor, presenting the weapon to him. Thor blinked upon seeing it before holding his hammer next to it, in comparison. No sooner had he done so did Mjolnir release a pulse that the hammer in his other hand responded to. A name floated through his mind and he smiled. Now standing at the edge of the Rainbow Bridge, Thor, along with Heimdall, held his son's hammer in his hands before lifting it to his lips and whispering, to whomever Hayashi deems worthy of wielding it, I grant upon you the power of Thor. Twirling it by its leather strap, Thor then threw the weapon into the gate, Heimdall following it with his infinite gaze. It landed on the elemental continent, embedding itself at the bottom of the ocean near a small island town, only being noticed by a young master bridge builder. The young bridge builder merely shrugged off the sound of a splash and returned talking to his daughter, Tsunami, and her boyfriend. Thor sighed heavily and began a journey back to his wife and hopefully get some answers. Heimdall turned his attention to the babe once again, his eyes narrowing as he watched the way the counselors argued over what should be done with the so-called demon child. "You fools, the guardian of the Rainbow Bridge thought as he returned to his post. Before you is the next heir to the All-Father throne, a soon-to-be king of Asgard. You know not problems you will face for your treachery." Nami no Kuni, 12 years later. A blonde 13-year-old looked down at a freshly dead raven-haired boy as he stood inside a hemisphere of ice mirrors, a masked teen looking down at them with pity from within the mirrors. The blonde's name was Naruto, Uzumaki Naruto to be exact, and he currently wore a kill-me orange-colored jumpsuit. His wavy blonde hair and cerulean blue eyes quickly filled with tears. Why? Because his teammate and rival, Uchiha Sasuke, just took a death blow meant for him. "Temuhai?" he thought sadly as he fell to the raven-haired boy's side. "Why you never liked me, save me? Is it because you think I am Afriend? But friends don't let friends die, no I've gotta do something. You are now at a crossroads, Uzumaki Naruto," a voice whispered in the back of his mind. "What will you do? Get vengeance for your friend or protect the others that still live?" Images of those he cares about back at Konoha flashed through his mind, and he imagined them dying. He squeezed his eyes shut and fought the tears back. "No! I won't let Sasuke's death go unpunished, but I won't let vengeance cloud my mind." "Good answer, Naruto Thor-san, heir to the throne of Asgard," the voice said once again. Naruto looked up and around for the source of the voice. He noticed the clouds start to gather and a crackle of lightning dance across the sky. Something pulsed nearby and Naruto's head whipped towards the edge of the bridge, where several shadows started to appear. But his attention went past them. Something called to him, asking for him to call back. Naruto held his hand up and quietly said, "See, come to me." As though he had cast a jutsu, something shot out from the water and zoomed through the sky before flying down into his hand. Naruto felt some sort of power course through him as a lightning bolt struck down on him. The blonde gasped as he felt the power flow through him. His clothes were burnt off and replaced with a dark metallic blue sleeveless tunic with 6 silver circles decorating his chest in 2 even symmetrical columns. Around his arms and hands were 2 leather fingerless gloves. He now wore navy blue trousers, his kunai holster being burned off as well as his supplies pouch, and 2 leather boots that looked almost mythical. A metallic strap containing the final 2 circles replaced his belt, and even had a notch on the side to hang the hammer axe that was now in his hand. To top things off, all the muscle tone he had been lacking, despite his insane strength, appeared, giving him the appearance of a god. "Hayashi," Naruto whispered, instantly knowing the name and its purpose. His eyes shone with determination and crackles of electricity crossed them. Raising his hammer-occupied hand, Naruto spoke as he pointed at one of the many hunter neens. "You have killed for the last time, wretched cur. As the son of Thor, whoever that is, I will stop you." "I would like to see you try," the masked teen replied coolly. He regretted those words when Naruto narrowed his eyes and slammed the hammer in the ground, lightning pouring down from the sky and striking each of the mirrors, destroying each one with ease. The hunter neen leapt from the mirror he occupied just in time to avoid being destroyed within his or her own jutsu. The hunter neen got to her hands and feet before he gasped as he saw the white-haired shinobi, Kakashi, charge a lightning attack in his right hand while his master, Zabuza, stood immobile due to the many dogs pinning him down. The boy with the strange hammer had lost her in the mist, which would have been fine had he not been able to see Kakashi begin to charge at the demon of the mist. The hunter neen formed a final ice mirror, attempting to stop the attack, when a blue and yellow blur appeared in front of Kakashi. "Halt, Kakashi-sensei!" Naruto demanded, his eyes not allowing the white-haired man any type of excuse. Seeing as Kakashi had barely built up enough momentum, he stopped his attack with ease before glaring down at the blonde before him. His eyes widened when a hammer axe became pointed at his face. "This battle is no longer necessary," Naruto stated, not knowing how he knew what he did, but taking pride in the fact he knew it was special and meaningful. "Look to the bridge's edge." "Very good, boy," a voice called out. Tazuna, the bridge builder that had hired Team 7 for this mission, clenched his fists, causing the pink-haired girl before him to shudder in fear. Gato, Zabuza and Tazuna unknowingly growled at the same time. Kakashi's eyes widened at this, knowing that if the rich man monopolizing this community was standing here, Zabuza was indeed no longer the enemy. The white-haired Jonin dismissed his summons, allowing the masked Hunter Nin to appear at her master's side. The Hunter Nin tossed her mask aside, making Naruto gasp. "What sorcery is this?" he asked, wondering immediately afterwards why he even said that. Haku? Haku looked up at Naruto sorrowfully and ashamed before saying quietly, "Hello Naruto-kun, was hoping our next encounter wouldn't come to this." "Why you killed Sasuke," Naruto said quietly, his mind unable to wrap around these events. He was snapped from it when Haku shook her head back and forth. "I merely hit spots that would put him in a short death-like state," he corrected. "Your teammate is alive. I am sorry I made you think otherwise. But I am too weak to take a life that doesn't need to be taken." "Nay, good friend," Naruto dismissed her apology with a shake of his head. "'Tis I that owe you an apology, for I hath seen that thine evils are of that man there." "Strange kid," Gato said with a chuckle before sighing and clacking his cane on the ground. "Kill them?" The army of bandits and thugs all raised their katanas, pitchforks, and cleavers, prepared to charge when an arrow fell into Gato's foot. The rich man screamed in pain before looking to see who had fired the shot, scowling when he saw the villagers, led by Tazuna's grandson Inari, massed at the other end of the bridge. As he began to order his army once again to attack, Naruto suddenly walked out until he was but a mere 20 feet away from them. The blonde looked over his shoulder at Tazuna and said, "I'm sorry for what I am about to do, good builder, but it must be done. Give 'em hell, kid!" Tazuna merely shouted back. Kakashi, although worried for his student, simply covered his revealed Sharingan and watched wearily as Naruto lifted his hammer once again. "In the name of Thor, Odin's son, King of Asgard, I demand you go no further!" Naruto shouted, his eyes narrowing. The bandits all laughed, as did Gato, making Naruto's scowl grow. Everyone watched as the many bandits began to charge at the blonde. Haku even went to save him with her ice mirrors, only to be stopped by Zabuza due to an inkling he had in his gut. To their shock, Naruto simply smirked and exclaimed, "Then you fools die at your own decision." The blonde then slammed his hammer into the center of the bridge and everyone stopped as they all heard a loud, ominous groan come from the metal bracers holding the stone frame while said stone cracked. The bandits all looked at each other before charging again, stumbling for balance when Naruto slammed Hayashi into the bridge once again. Naruto began swinging his hammer at the bridge, working away at the metal holding the bandits side up, while the bandits, and Gato, all just tried to stay on their own feet. "By the power of Asgard," Naruto shouted as he gripped his hammer with both hands, "I cast you down." He slammed Hayashi into the ground once again, shattering the steel girders that held the bridge up and causing every bandit on the uncompleted side, as well as Gato, to plummet into the roaring waves down below. Gato had unfortunately missed the water, instead plummeting into the lazily drifting ship that had brought him and his men to the bridge, killing him as soon as he passed through the deck. Naruto stood panting slightly, before he began to hear slow clapping, which grew into cheering. The blonde demigod turned to see all of the villagers of Nami no Kuni cheering him on, Tazuna grinning madly at him, whilst Sakura ran to the slowly awakening Sasuke. Kakashi gave him an eye smile as he assisted Haku with keeping Zabuza steady. The boy then felt another pull, similar to that of when Hayashi reached out to him. Naruto turned and saw a bright light at the edge of the bridge. "What's this?" Naruto asked himself, slowly approaching it. Curiously, he reached out to touch it. The people of Nami no Kuni, the missing Nin from Kirigakure no Sato, and the shinobi from Konohagakure no Sato all had to shield their eyes when Naruto suddenly vanished in a lightning bolt and the skies cleared of all dark clouds they held. The same thought ran through everyone's minds: what the hell just happened? Naruto rubbed his eyes as the light faded that had blinded him. When he could see once again, his hands instantly went to his hammer as a strange dark-skinned man with square yellow eyes and golden arms stood before him with a massive sword in his hands. Preparing to fight, Naruto hopped to his feet and settled into a sloppy fighting stance with his hammer in hand. The man said, his voice sounding almost omniscient to the blonde. "They did hinder your skills, didn't they, my lord? Come. Your king awaits you." "Who are you?" Naruto demanded before the man could even turn away. The man looked down at him with the square golden eyes that slightly creeped the blonde out. I am Heimdall, guardian of the bridge, Naruto Thorson, Heimdall said in his omniscient voice. Now come, the warriors 3 await you at the other side of the bridge. I must return to my duties. Getting a pulse from Hayashi, informing the blonde that he should do as instructed, Naruto reluctantly relaxed slightly before walking out of the strange sphere-like room he had awoken in. He followed Heimdall outside, shielding his eyes from the immense bright light before having his jaw drop in awe of the beautiful land before him. The Rainbow Bridge, Heimdall said from his right, though immensely beautiful, it is also one of the most sacred devices you will find in Asgard. Asgard? You mean? Naruto looked around. That wasn't just some jutsu wastwasmino. Yes, ugh. Heimdall chuckled as the two instincts of what one determined home to be duked it out in Naruto's head, knowing what the blonde's conflict was due to the hand on his head, and the pained look in his now electric blue eyes. Thor was the same way not so long ago, wanting forever to be on Earth with the humans he guarded, while also wishing to stay on home, to defend it like no one else before had. It was strange to Heimdall that two people could do so, but who was he to question the line of the All-Father? He was a simple guardian, nothing more, nothing less. Naruto looked at Heimdall when he was lightly nudged in the shoulder. The blonde followed the guardian's gaze and his jaw dropped when 3 men, one skinny blonde Caucasian and dressed in green, a lightly armored Asian dressed in blue, and the final being a fat red-bearded Caucasian man while dressed in a dark red, approached him. They all smiled down at him and placed their clenched right fists over their chests in a salute with a small bow. Welcome to Asgard, Prince Naruto, the one in green said with a smile. Allow me to introduce myself and my friends. We are the Warriors 3, and I am Fandal. To my right is Hogan and my left is Volstagg. Uzumaki I mean Naruto Thorson, the blonde replied, confused as to why he would change his name so suddenly. He copied their salute, instantly making the 3 smile at his manners, before asking, so am I here? What is here anyway? Is this a dream? And what is this hammer dash? Whoa there, Naruto, Volstagg said, holding his hands up. Your father will explain everything once we return to the king's chambers. My father? Naruto replied in confusion. You meant his Thor guy. He doesn't know? Strange, Hogan mused, placing a hand on his chin. Heimdall tightened his grip on his blade. He was raised as an orphan of war, the guardian said, snorting in distaste. Sarutobi believed it'd be the only way to protect him from his father's enemies. How absurd! Fandal scoffed before looking down at the boy. Naruto, would you not like to meet your parents? Of course I would! Naruto shouted, excitement shining in his eyes. The Warriors 3 laughed aloud and started to lead the energetic boy to the other side of the bridge. Heimdall watched as Naruto left with his soon-to-be teachers with a smile that was barely noticeable on his face. Do the Asgardians well, Naruto Thorson, he thought as he closed his eyes and went back to guarding the bridge. Thor sat at his throne with Kushina, his loving wife of 12 Midgardian years, standing at his side. They both waited with anticipation for the Warriors 3 to come into the throne room with their son. The former god of thunder, now All-Father, had felt the very moment that Naruto picked up his hammer. He held on to that feeling and sent some of his own battle instincts to ensure his son would survive whatever battle he was in. His wife, Kushina, gifted with hearing equal to that of Heimdall's, informed him of his small influence on their son's speech, earning laughter from the king and queen of Asgard. The doors were thrown open and both rulers looked on as the Warriors 3 strolled into the throne room, saluting and bowing before stepping aside. Kushina gasped and held a hand to her mouth as she looked upon her now older son, remembering when she had held him just after his birth. He had his father's looks and would have been a splitting image of the All-Father if it weren't for the fact he had the faint whisker marks, her facial structure and her skin tone that marked him as her son. Tears came to her eyes as he slowly approached. Thor felt exactly what his wife did as he looked upon his son, noting the similarities between his son and himself when they were that age. Heimdall had told him of his malnourishment at the hands of their former village, but he no longer held any signs of it. Lean and large muscles for a child his age now covered his body, easily visible with his new attire. The All-Father gave the boy before him a smile and lifted his staff, dropping it, and causing a loud bang before giving a single order. Leave us, he said calmly and quietly, no amount of anger or malice in his voice. The many within the throne room, guards and warriors 3 included, left the reunited family to themselves. Thor lifted his staff once again and slid it into a holster built into the throne before standing and extending his arms. "My son, welcome to Asgard," Thor said with a smile. Naruto blinked in confusion as the two approached, the tall, intimidating blonde man in golden armor, much more regal than Heimdall's, with long blonde hair similar to his own and a thick blonde beard adorning his face, stepping aside to allow a gorgeous red-headed woman to approach him. Tears were in her green eyes as she dropped down to his height and cupped his face, examining him. "Sochi," she whispered, a tear falling down her cheek. Something panged in Naruto's heart, something he realized to be the recognizing of his mother from a distant memory that was fresh in his infant mind. Tears soon came to the electric blue eyes of the boy, and he dropped Hayashi to his side and embraced the woman in a hug, one she fully welcomed and returned. "Cousin," he whimpered out, tears of joy falling from his face at finally being able to use the words freely. The woman cried along with him, hugging him to her body and allowing him to absorb the feeling of a mother's love for the somewhat first time in his life. Thor watched the exchange with a smile, his own eyes becoming somewhat misty at the beautiful sight before him, but his pride as an Asgardian man fighting the tears down as much as he could. When the two finally broke from their embrace, Kushina cupped the boy's face again and brushed her thumb along the tear-stricken whisker marks on his cheek. "Naruto-kun," she said softly, "you've grown into such a dashing young man. I am just sorry we couldn't be there." "Why weren't you there?" their son asked them, hurt resonating in his question, the sorrow of loneliness echoing in his question. Kushina nearly broke out in tears again, something she did since she first awoke in Asgard. Not being able to comfort and coddle her child as she heard his cries for help and quiet sobbing in the night very nearly destroyed her. More than once she had fallen into a depressive state that not even her husband's love could cure. "My son," Thor said softly as he approached them, earning their attention, "I don't know how hard it is to grow up alone, but being forced to feel your pain and your mother having to hear your cries without being able to help you, we can never ask you to forgive us for leaving you. There is a reason we had to leave you. Well, a reason I had to leave you. It was because of the Kyuubi, right?" Naruto asked with a frown. Kushina could feel her heart break again as she recalled the night that silver-haired Chunin spread the false truth of Naruto holding a demon within him. Thor had informed her that no human being could contain a construct of Loki's design, so she knew her son did not hold the Kyuubi within him. The pained cries that came from his room upon that discovery didn't help her forgive the silver-haired man for his trickery of her son. She wouldn't admit it, but she had contemplated asking Heimdall to bring said Chunin to her so she could kill him slowly in the faster time that surrounded Asgard. It was, Thor admitted sadly. Upon seeing Naruto's head fall, he quickly added, "But not for the reasons you think. The demon is not within you, my son." It's not?" What do you mean?" Naruto asked with wide eyes. "Is it still out there?" "Nay, child," the Asgardian king said with a shake of his head, "the beast was slain as soon as I transported it to Asgard." Seeing his extremely confused face, Thor explained the whole situation to his son. Kushina stayed by Naruto's side the whole time, her arms still wrapped around him as though she tried to protect him from the loneliness that plagued him for so long. Thor couldn't help but understand his wife, silently happy that she would be able to hold her son a while longer before Thor sent him back. The blonde teen listened intently as his father explained everything to him, finding the explanation of the science and magics of the jutsu his grandfather Odin had bestowed upon his hidden continent as an experiment to see if the humans were ready for gifts to defend themselves with. The two wars had saddened the original Allfather, making him extremely disappointed that they hadn't taken his lessons as the Sage of Six Paths to heart. After consulting with the prophetess over his hidden continent, he discovered a third war would plague it, possibly destroying every living being on the continent. That is how Thor was sent there to grow amongst them, and use his understanding of their jutsu to save them. The Allfather hadn't expected Loki to send a beast after Thor's village, though, just as Kushina didn't expect Loki to be listening as she cursed her half-brother-in-law's name to no end. At the end of his explanation, Naruto smiled, proud to be the son of his hero, who was actually a god from another realm, no less, and said, "I understand and forgive you, father. But why didn't you send anyone to look after me like Heimdall suggested?" Thor sighed, expecting this answer, and placed his hand on his son's shoulder, I would have. By Odin's beard did I want to send the warriors 3 to protect and raise you, but Odin had denied my many requests, wishing to defend you from Loki's evil. He, like Hiruzen, unknowingly left you to another evil, the evils within your fellow man. He had never forgiven himself for leaving you to their glares and silent curses, but like your mother and I, he loved you very much. Did he mean, is Odin Gigi? Naruto failed to ask the words he so desperately wanted an answer for. Thor smiled, knowing what his son was asking him, and nodded sadly. Naruto bowed his head sadly, only for it to be lifted by his mother's gentle hand and looked into her eyes as she spoke softly to him. Odin-sama lives on in Valhalla, Sochi, and there is no need for tears. He watches over us still with his all-seeing eye. He knows of your love and gratefulness and understands your slight anger for him. Even though he is far from our home, I hear him now as he asks forgiveness. Naruto smiled at his mother and bowed his head, speaking quietly to his deceased grandfather and forgiving him. Another warm feeling came over him as he felt the warmth of his grandfather's love close around him, just as he felt his mother's and father's when he first stepped onto Asgard, only recognizing it when he entered the throne room. The young blonde lifted his head and looked at his parents once again with a smile. In his mind, though, questions raced in and out of his consciousness. A very important one dashed the seemingly insignificant ones aside. Will I ever go back to Konohagakure no Sato? He asked. No/yes, his parents replied simultaneously. Kushina glared at her husband as she hugged Naruto closer to him, Thor not even becoming angry at the defiance shown to him. He smiled, in fact, knowing it was this defiance that attracted him to her, and also knowing that she had every right as a mother to deny that request. Before she should attempt to explode at him, though, he explained himself. Kushina, my love, Thor said, placing his hand on her shoulder, the glare lessening at his touch as her more understanding side came through. I do not intend to send him back immediately. I am no fool. To give someone this much power without proper training, it would be the same as to fire all of S.H.I.E.L.D's many weapons on a simple housefly. Yes, he shall return, but only when he is deemed ready by myself and the warriors 3. Kushina smiled and nodded her understanding, knowing that would mean she would get even more time to spend with her son, and release some of the tension she held said teen in her arms. Naruto was ecstatic the second his father mentioned training, his denied education thriving to be filled as he resisted the urge to bounce around in joy. Thor removed his hand, happy his wife understood and agreed with him, and redirected his attention to the widely grinning blonde before him, his eyes glistening with excitement at the prospect of becoming stronger. The poor boy would soon be cursing his father for the sadistic training he would go through. Asgardian training grounds. The time change compared to that back home for Naruto was strange. Although his body told him 6 hours had gone by, he also felt the wares of 2 weeks having passed since his arrival on Asgard. Already he had met many more of his father's friends and allies, as well as getting to know his mother while he studied his mathematics, magics, sciences and histories of the many realms. Naruto was grateful he learned the Shadow Clone Jutsu. Otherwise he would have possibly taken even longer to complete the many studies his mother and his tutors had bestowed upon him. But it also allowed him to leave the clones behind so he could train with his father and the warriors 3. He practiced his hammer fighting with his father, no sparring really necessary as with a hammer you either missed or hit. And when you did hit, everyone would know it. The time spent in their hammer training mixed with the training of elemental powers, Naruto and Thor being surprised when they discovered Naruto also had a knack for illusions. He also increased his own strength and stamina while with his father, the two sparring in hand-to-hand combat, and challenging each other in weightlifting, foot racing, swimming and mountain climbing. They had fun in each event they competed against each other with. He also learned many life lessons from his father when they would exchange some stories, him telling his father of his pranking days, rekindling many happy memories of a young god of mischief in the All-Father's mind, while his father would tell him many grand tales as his time as the god of thunder. When he would train with the warriors 3, Naruto would hear even grander tales, or more embarrassing ones that he would never hear from his father's mouth. Fandao taught him swordsmanship, should the situation ever arrive that he needed to know it, and also taught him the ways to come up with strategies the Nara clan would be envious of. When he was with Volstagg, The large man taught him many fighting tactics, and to think out multiple plans at once whilst under stress. Unfortunately for Naruto, this was mainly taught through the manner of Val's tag, having the warriors three attack him while he had to try and find a bell in the forest surrounding the training grounds, and then having to ring it. Hogan taught him how to be absolutely silent whenever he moved, enhancing his shinobi abilities tenfold, as well as teaching him precision with his aim. The Asian warrior also trained him in the art of thieves, giving him ways to steal things, a lesson that aggravated Val's tag to no end as he was used as the practice dummy along with his food being the target. Now, though, he was practicing his elemental control with his father. Concentrate, Naruto, Thor instructed as Naruto gathered the wind nearby into a ball in his hand, the true form of Minato's Rasengan. Naruto felt beads of sweat travel down his forehead as he held his left hand over his right as the wind slowly began to swirl around in two directions. Good, very good. Thor praised as Naruto managed to get the first part after 2 days of training. Now add the power to it like I instructed. Don't force the power out, just let it steadily leak into the attack. Naruto nodded and concentrated on allowing the power to flow into his hand. He had made it to this part before, but lost control over the first part of the attack due to the lack of concentration. Naruto closed his eyes and moved the thought of keeping the spin going into the back of his mind as his mother taught him to do so. His attention now semi-clear of keeping the form of the attack, Naruto focused on the power flow of his attack. Soon enough, the attack resembled the one that rested in his father's hands. Thor was impressed. When Odin had begun to teach him this, it had taken him an entire week to grasp the full lesson behind the Rasengan. He learned that uncontrolled power would eventually blow back in the face of the wielder, but he never fully understood that until he had faced down one of his foes in the Third Shinobi War. His human form nearly died after a failed attack made by his foe. The man attacking was not as lucky. His arm was blown off of his body, causing him to die slowly from blood loss. Thor shook the memory from his mind, it being one of the few that he strongly disliked. He looked back at his son who held the Rasengan in front of him in his right hand, a proud smile on the face of the young god of thunder to be. Thor dismissed his own Rasengan and clapped his hands, applauding his son and chuckling. Very good, Naruto. Very good, he praised. He knew it didn't fill Naruto's head, seeing as the boy was hardly praised for anything and knew what he did was no simple task. As Naruto dismissed the Rasengan, a sigh of relief escaping the young blonde's lips, his father continued to speak. Your time on Asgard is coming to a close, I'm sorry to say. Naruto's smile faltered a moment. He knew he would be more than welcome to return to Asgard whenever he wished, so long he is not near anything that could threaten his father's home realm. But the thought of leaving his parents after just getting to know them saddened him. Seeing his son's disappointment and sorrow fill his eyes, Thor knelt on one knee and placed his hand on Naruto's shoulder. Do not be sad, my son. Your mother and I shall always be a call away should you ever need us. I shall inform Heimdall to keep an eye on you, which I think he is prepared to do anyway. Naruto and Thor shared a chuckle. Though the stoic guardian would never admit it, he admired and was proud of his prince for being able to withstand such hatred, such undeserved hatred, from the many ignorant villagers. The rest of Asgard knew, however, they saw it whenever Naruto went to learn about the using of the Rainbow Bridge. Heimdall's eyes would glow with pride whenever the blonde demigod was in his presence. This last technique I will teach you shall be the first step you take into the role of the god of thunder, the Asgardian king said, electing a nod from his son. To your village, it was known as the Hirishin, or as I jokingly called it, Flying Fist of the Thunder God. Here, it is mainly a power I utilized from Mjolnir. You know how to call Hayashi to you, so that you can have your weapon in your hands in a split second. Now you must learn to appear before it just as fast. I will not lie, this technique took me a while to develop, let alone master, but I believe you shall do better with an instructor. Are you ready for this, Naruto Thor-san? Yes, father, Naruto replied with a nod. Thor smiled, patting the teen on his shoulder. Good, he said, raising his hand and summoning Mjolnir to his hand from where it rested embedded in stone beside Hayashi. Naruto did the same, his own hammer returning to his hand just as fast. Now to begin, Thor started as he began instructing Naruto on how to use this technique. 4 days later, Nami no Kuni. Where is that baka? Haruno Sakura growled as she paced the living room of Tazuna's home. Her teammate Sasuke watched from his spot where he was stuck on the couch before scoffing and practicing the activation of his Sharingan. He doubted every word his sensei and the two nuke nines that were also resting in the bridge builders' homes concerning the class dunce. The dope can't be that strong, the Uchiha survivor thought arrogantly. He was the rookie of the year, after all. How could he not be the strongest in comparison to Uzumaki Naruto of all people? The blonde had no idea what the word style meant, as you could tell based on his jumpsuit. Oh, relax, Sakura-chan, Haku said as it was discovered by Sakura when she walked in on Haku undressing for a shower that she was indeed a girl, assisted Tsunami with dinner. Tsunami smiled down at the teenage girl on her left, having taken a shine to the trained hunter nin and her sensei. Tsunami blushed as she thought about the brutish man named Zabuza that was currently in the same room as the Konoha genin, polishing his blade. Despite his attitude, Zabuza was indeed a gentleman when he needed to be, and seeing as he found Tsunami just as attractive as she found him, he had yet to do something that would severely upset her. Please? Inari asked again as he knelt in front of the nuke nin. Please teach me how to be a swordsman? For the last damn time, no! Zabuza growled, groaning when Inari hardly flinched. The two women in the kitchen giggled when they heard the bickering between them. The door opened and everyone looked in hope, or curiosity in Zabuza and Sasuke's case, to see a certain long-haired blonde, their hopes falling when Kakashi and Tazuna stepped in. I cannot thank you again for helping me, Kakashi, Tazuna said as he sat down where Sasuke's feet used to occupy, the raven-haired teen now sitting as he tried to appear healed to get more training from his sensei. Oh, it's no big deal, Kakashi said with a wave of dismissal. The sooner the bridge is completed, the sooner I can go back to reading my Aika. Haku, Sakura, and Tsunami all scowled at the mention of the perverted novel. The white-haired Jonin brushed the impressive amount of killing intent coming from the women off and sat on the right of Zabuza, the two having gained a mutual respect for one another. So he isn't back yet? Kakashi asked. Zabuza snorted. Your powers of observation never cease to amaze me, Kakashi, the nuke nin said. The white-haired man gave his equal a sidelong glance from his half-lidded eye. Why, thank you, he replied sarcastically, not missing a beat before he returned his attention to the window and looked at the sky. He thought about the son of his sensei, wondering where he could have gone and if it had anything to do with what he contained. As he thought, he faintly became aware of the growing dark clouds in the sky. When lightning flashed and thunder roared just behind the home of their client, he was instantly snapped from his thoughts. Everyone get down and away from the windows! Kakashi shouted, going into full Jonin mode. Zabuza, you're with me, right? The nuke nin grunted out as the two made their way to the backyard. What they saw made their eyes widen and their jaws drop so far, Kakashi's mask started to slide down his face. As sensei? Kakashi whispered as he saw within what seemed to be many pillars of lightning Naruto along with his, Kakashi's, sensei Minato. The older man had his hand on the teen's shoulder, and was saying something inaudible to him due to the thunder booming and lightning crackling. Kakashi hesitantly took a step forward but stopped when the two embraced in a small hug. Another second later and the lightning stopped, leaving behind the blonde teen that stood alone atop ruins. Naruto turned around and faced the two, giving them a friendly smile as he scratched his slightly fuzzy cheek. He really should shave like Kazan suggested, but he'll get to that later. He calmly walked up to his sensei and gave the man a mock glare as he crossed his now larger arms over his impressive chest and asked, So why didn't you tell me who my father was? Kakashi faltered for a reasonable response. Zabuza, however, noticed the mischievous twinkle in the blonde's electric blue eye and laughed, gaining Kakashi's attention and making him frown in confusion. Kakashi looked back at his knucklehead student to see him smiling back at him. Realizing he had been had, Kakashi sighed and lightly swatted at Naruto's head. Stupid Gaki, Kakashi grumbled before storming back inside. He had to admit though, Naruto had fooled him well for a moment. Not bad, Squirt, not bad, Zabuza praised as he patted the blonde on his larger shoulder. What happened on the bridge, kid? You grew almost 3 inches and look like you could crush a small tree with a hug. Aye, Naruto nodded, speaking like his father and mother did. I can do that and more. 'Tis a result from having Thor, my father, and the Warriors 3 trained me for 2 seasons. Damn, the Kiwiri gonna have to spar sometime, huh? Zabuza asked with a bit of excitement in his voice. He had heard legends of the Warriors 3, and in a world where demons supposedly roamed the lands freely, he certainly believed in them. If this kid actually trained with them, he would be in for one hell of a fight. We shall indeed. Come, my good man, Naruto said, clapping Zabuza on the arm. Let us drink to our victory against Gato. I'll drink to that. Zabuza agreed as they re-entered the house. And ISN. Inari cried in joy as he leapt at the blonde. Naruto easily caught him with one hand and laughed. Hello, Inari, good to see your spirits have risen since our last meeting, the blonde said with a grin. How did you gather enough men to counter Gato? Little Runt ran around banging on doors, shouting that he needed help until people came out, Tazuna said, taking a sip of his rice wine. He stood and approached the blonde, giving and getting a smile before they shook hands. I don't know what happened, kid, but you sure took care of them. 'Twas my pleasure to lay waste to those scum, Naruto replied with a smile. Happy he befuddled the bridge builder with his words. How goes the bridge? Any problems? None thanks to your team and the Momochi, Tazuna said, gesturing to Haku and Zabuza, the former having a blush on her face as she took in Naruto's new features before her eyes narrowed and the latter crossing his arms and grinning in pride beneath his bandages. I'm happy to hear it, Naruto replied. He walked into the living room, giving a nod to both Tsunami and Haku, and stood before his team. Kakashi, having calmed down, took in the blonde's new look and gave him a nice smile in approval. Sakura readied herself to pound the stuffing out of him, but froze when her eyes fully acknowledged his being. And Naruto? Watwo? No way! Sakura cried in disbelief. Naruto laughed heartily before turning to face Sasuke. The boy had bandages all over his torso and around his neck, his eyes a glowing red with tomos within them. Dobe, he greeted with a nod, taking in his new attire. Finally gain a fashion sense? I guess I have, Naruto admitted as he scratched the back of his head sheepishly before offering his hand to the raven-haired boy. Thank you for what you did. I owe you a lot more than you can imagine. Just don't get me killed, Dobe, Sasuke said, keeping his arrogant tone but giving Naruto a small smile. The blonde gave him one back in response before turning around once again and holding his arms out. Then what are we waiting for? He asked the group. Celebrations for Team 7's first successful A-rank mission are in order. Here. Zabuza and Tazuna cheered, the builder handing the blonde a sake bottle, to which they all knocked bottles before guzzling them down. Team 7 was shocked Naruto would drink the alcoholic substance. But before he could be scolded by their pink-haired enforcer, he was grabbed by the collar of his shirt and dragged outside by Haku. Sakura blinked and turned to Sasuke, who shrugged and merely went back to trying to keep his wounds from reopening. The pinkette then turned to her white-haired sensei, who also shrugged before pulling his porn out and giggling perversely. What is the meaning of this? Naruto asked as Haku shut the door behind her. The hunter-nin turned and faced the blonde, taking in his appearance once again, before she held her hands up in a ram seal. Kai! She said harshly. After waiting a moment, and standing outside, away from the celebrations, Naruto crossed his arms and moved back towards the door. Haku quickly smacked his hand aside and stood in front of the door with a kitchen knife in her hand defensively. The blonde growled and his right hand went for the handle of Hayashi. Stand aside, Haku, he ordered calmly. I do not wish to harm you. You cannot be Naruto-kun, she replied. Her eyes locked on his right hand. Naruto-kun may have looked like you, but he hardly acted so calm towards his teammates. He was always guarded against them, but you aren't. You're very open. This can only mean you are either a spy or an assassin, can it? Naruto questioned, his stance dropping and crossing his arms over his chest once again. Haku didn't respond, so Naruto continued, I have been away from Midgard, sorry. I mean the elemental nations for 5 days, right? Naruto vanished in a flash of light, Haku said with narrowed eyes. That could have been you kidnapping him with a jutsu. If I wasn't Naruto, why would I know that you are the one that taught me what a precious person was? He countered. Haku had no response for that but kept her stance just in case. Naruto sighed and dropped his arms to his side and held them out. Haku, he said softly, looking her directly in the eyes. He took another breath before, in the most annoying voice he could use, he screamed, "I'm gonna be Hokage." "Believe it!" Haku blinked before bursting out into laughter. Naruto grinned, putting his hands on the back of his head. "Believe me now?" he asked, earning a nod from the Ice Maiden as she continued to laugh. Glad she believed him, the blonde demigod waited until she had calmed somewhat before escorting her back inside, where he had to explain to everyone why Haku was giggly. He then went on to explain where he went, and what he had been doing. No one believed him though, save for the two Jonin, civilians, and the Ice Maiden herself. To back in Konohagakure no Sato, Naruto drawled as he took in a breath of fresh air before sneezing and wiping under his nose with his thumb. He had shaved at the demand of Tsunami, whom believed it to be unhealthy that a 13-year-old should have large amounts of fuzz on his face. Naruto would have argued that he was the son of Thor, but he doubted that would have gotten him anywhere, so he did, leaving a small artist strap beneath his bottom lip. "Not as illustrious as your teammates made it out to be," Haku drawled with a sigh. Naruto glanced over at her with a grin. The girl had fought Zabuza tooth and nail to stay in Nami no Kuni with him and Tazuna's family. Zabuza, however, wanted the girl to live her own life, not to bother him anymore. Later during their journey, however, Team 7 learned that Zabuza actually shed a tear when he pulled Haku aside to explain what he wanted her to do by going to Konoha. He no longer wanted her to be a tool, but to be a person on her own. The final order by her sensei/father had driven it home for her, and she agreed, leaving behind Zabuza's genin headband and former Hunter Nin mask. "Meh, it has its perks," Naruto said quietly as he and Haku carried up the rear. "Not as good as Asgard, Thuffle Mother. How I wish you were here to make me some of your delicious broth I call ramen." Naruto was snapped from his daydreaming of ramen as the Chunin guards asked for his ID. He offered it, wondering why the Chunin kept glancing from the ID to him. When he was finally irritated enough, he pulled Hayashi out and slammed it into their desk, smashing it with ease. The two Chunin yelped and clung together before giving Naruto a safe passage so he could enter the village with his team and Haku. So Nami no Kuni is saved," Sarutobi Hiruzen said with a smile, "and you seem to have a tag-along." "Hello, Hokage-sama," Haku said with a bow. She was dressed in a green yukata that resembled her former Hunter Nin outfit along with some shinobi heeled sandals she had gotten while in Nami no Kuni as they waited for Naruto to return. The yukata did well to hide her saban holster on her forearms. Haku looked at the elderly man behind the desk and continued, "My name is Momochi Haku. I am the daughter of Momochi Zabuza, and before you ask, he is." "Oh, I'm terribly sorry, child," Sarutobi said with concern written on his face. Kakashi fought hard not to snicker. He was the one that had thought up the lines, knowing the Hokage best and what he would respond positively to. He nearly busted a gut when the Hokage continued with, "Is there anything I can do?" "Well, sir," she said quietly as she feigned, "and my father did teach me some jutsu and his personal taijutsu. I took more to medical jutsu though, so I was hoping you could enroll me in a medic nin class." "A splendid idea," Sarutobi said with a smile. "I'll write up the documents now." "Is there anything else?" "No, sir," Haku fibbed. She had learned from Naruto on their journey back to Konoha that bloodline users were treated like kings and usually were spoiled rotten. He gestured to Sasuke several times as an example, further keeping Haku from wishing to become like his teammate. The blonde gave her a thumbs up while Sakura and Sasuke gave her strange looks. "Actually, Hokage-sama," Sakura made to explain her bloodline when Kakashi suddenly spoke up, "we were wondering when the Chunin exams were so that I could sign them up prematurely and not wait until the last minute." The Hokage, Sakura, Sasuke, and Haku all looked at the former ANBU captain curiously while Naruto kept a steady eye locked on his sensei. The two had discussed where he had gone when Kakashi went on watch, and the man fully believed his sensei had somehow become an avenging angel. Naruto tried to explain to Kakashi that Minato wasn't even a real person by showing him the Rasengan and explaining how he had learned it, but it only further fueled Kakashi's belief that he could become haunted if not careful. He didn't mean to blurt out the Chunin exams because he wanted to see his team train more together, but Naruto had told him that same night that Haku didn't want to become a clan head. She wanted a simple life that she could walk away from if she ever desired to return to Nami no Kuni, and Kakashi only recalled the Chunin exam briefing he was late for just before they left to Nami no Kuni. Well, although a strange request, I cannot deny it, the Hokage said with a smile before opening a drawer and pulling 3 copies of the Chunin exam sign-up sheets, offering them to the reluctant Jonin. And seeing that you hold your students in such high views, I believe you want to sign them up then? Hi. Kakashi replied dumbly. The members of Team 7 were all then given the papers by the Hokage. Sakura finished reading them over and a frown crossed her face. She didn't feel as though she was ready for such a dangerous thing. Her eyes went to her hero and love, Sasuke, and then to the dope-turned powerhouse, Naruto. They had already signed the papers and gave them in. Sasuke had then dismissed himself to do whatever he pleases, having Sakura quickly make up her mind before she signed her sheet and turned it into the Hokage, hurrying to catch up to Sasuke and ask him for a date. Kakashi blinked at the speed his pink-haired student had left at before shrugging and leaving himself with a simple poof of smoke. This left only Haku, Naruto, and Sarutobi in the room. The Hokage was filling out Haku's request forms while Naruto waited patiently to speak to him. There we are, Sarutobi said, finishing the final bit of paper for Haku's request forms. If you'll take these to my receptionist out front, she will gladly then lead you to the hospital so you can begin your internship. Haku-chan. Arigato, Hokage-sama, Haku said with a bow as she took the papers. She and Naruto exchanged a smile before she left, and once the door was shut, Naruto slammed Hayashi through Sarutobi's desk. Several NBU dropped from the ceiling and aimed katanas at the blonde's throat, only for them to each be knocked out by the electricity branching off from the blonde into their blades, then hands, and finally their nervous systems. And Naruto? Sarutobi asked in shock. Naruto kept his face calm before his eyes narrowed. You have lied to me time and time again, Sarutobi Hiruzen, Naruto growled out. No more. I know of my parents and my burden. Bestow upon me my rights as the son to Namikaze Minato or face my wrath as the Kyuubi Jinchūriki. Naruto, do not threaten me, Sarutobi said calmly, his own eyes narrowing. Bad things tend to happen when a Hokage is threatened. Bad things tend to happen when a child is left to fend for himself. But that didn't get you off your ass to get me a home, Naruto countered, silently thanking his mother for making him take up politics. The Hokage muttered a curse and electricity sparked from Naruto's body. The two held their gaze for a moment before Naruto placed Hayashi back at his side calmly, his electric blue eyes boring holes into Sarutobi's head. The Hokage sighed and summoned another desk from the seal on the ground. Had to be prepared when your student can smash building with a flick of her finger after all. Before he rested his head against his interlocked hands, Kakashi told you? I met them. The statement made Sarutobi's head snap up so fast, Naruto was afraid for a moment that he would collapse dead due to the strain on his neck. The Hokage gaped at Naruto for a moment before asking, how? But Yuri did. Save your babbling for when you are senile, Naruto said, waving his hand and crossing his arms. You wouldn't believe me if I told you. Father told me you were very, very set in your ways of religious beliefs. Not at this old Norse god crap again. Sarutobi groaned out as he sat back in his chair. Damn you, Minato, passing your absurd idea. If Sarutobi hadn't ducked just then, his desk would have carried him out of the window as Naruto smacked his hammer against it with one hand. The old Kage looked at the angered face of the Kyuubi Jinchūriki, electricity dancing around his eyes. Do not bring that up with me. Naruto snarled. I may like you, Sarutobi, but you no longer hold yourself in the same place of my heart that you used to. I am not the orange jumpsuit wearing wannabe Hokage child I was long ago. I am Naruto Thor-san and you will respect my father and Odenjiji. Okay. Sarutobi said, holding his hands up in defense. Just please calm down, Naruto. More ANBU will arrive and I don't want them to hurt you. So you say, Naruto said, calmly placing his hammer back at his waist. He started to walk away before pausing at the door. The blonde looked over his shoulder and said, my rights will be bestowed to me upon the ending of the second exam. Are we in agreement? If it will keep you calm, Sarutobi sighed out. Naruto left, slamming the door behind him. The old Kage held his hands in his head and groaned. Damn you, Minato, also discovered your wife's response to your fanatic religious beliefs. The boy will be the death of me. This is nice, Naruto said as he walked Haku to his apartment complex. The Hokage had given her an apartment in it, and asked Naruto, via messenger bird, to take her to the village and then show her around. Naruto used his Hiraishin to reappear in the Hokage's office, nearly giving the man a heart attack, before he escorted Haku out of the building. It is, Haku agreed with a nod. Your hospital is quite nice, as are the people working there. The blonde agreed with a grunt. His attention had drifted back to the small box following him. It looked to be designed with the intention to be a rock, only it had 2 eye holes in it. The god of thunder arched his brow in amusement when he suddenly stopped and turned around. Haku paused and followed her guide, wondering what he was doing, when the blonde detached his hammer from his waist and lazily spun it by the strap of leather at the edge. "Ma wonderful day, is it not, Haku?" Naruto asked her, winking at her, as he slowly inched towards the rock. Haku instantly understood him, nodded. "You're absolutely right, Naruto-kun," Haku said with a smile. Naruto waited until his was right beside the rock. "It would be better if there was somewhere I could mount my hammer out." "This rock should do nicely," Naruto said, switching his hammer around and bringing his hammer down in a full swing, slashing the rock in half before he leapt away. A smoke bomb went off and 3 cries accompanied with coughing were heard within it. "Too much powder, Konohamaru-kun!" a girlish voice cried. Naruto chuckled and holstered Hayashi again. "I should have known. Konohamaru, you little brat, what are you doing?" Boss, we had an awesome intro thing we were going to do," the young Sarutobi whined before his eye landed on Naruto's hammer. "Oh cool. What is that?" "What?" Naruto asked before following his gaze and grabbing Hayashi. "This? Yeah," Konohamaru said, a girl his age with her orange hair done up in 2 braids and a boy wearing glasses walking up behind him. The 3 of them all wore goggles on their foreheads, similar to how he used to wear his. "This is Hayashi," Naruto said, lightly tossing it into the air so the hammer could flip before he caught it simply in his hand. "What I'd like to know is who your 2 friends are." "I'm Moegi," the orange-haired girl said, the sassiest Kunoichi. "Udon," the boy with glasses said before he sniffed up a drip of something from his nose. "I like math." Naruto deadpanned, Hayashi dangling by its leather strap in his hand. "And you 3 are?" "The Konohamaru's secret corps," the 3 chimed. Naruto chuckled and Haku giggled, both teens amused with the children's antics. It was then Konohamaru noticed Haku, and a blush covered his face. "Wow boss, who's she?" he asked, pointing at Haku. "Is she Yuriano?" Naruto was confused by what he meant, but fully understood when the young Sarutobi flicked his pinky finger out. Haku turned a healthy rosy shade of red and Naruto scratched the back of his head embarrassedly, his own face turning a slight shade of pink. "And no," the blonde got out with a grin, "she's just a friend, Yano? This is Momochi Haku, a medic nin in training." "Cool," the 3 children chorused. Konohamaru looked back at Naruto and asked, "Boss, will you play ninja with us?" "Yeah," Moegi chimed in before the 3 of them adopted the classic puppy pout of doom and fell before Naruto on their knees. Naruto laughed nervously while Haku simply giggled at the scene. Haku stepped forward and nudged Naruto in the side, earning the blonde's attention. "Play ninja with them, Naruto-kun," Haku said with a smile. "I've gotta go to the hospital anyway before we go back to the apartment. I'll catch up with you later." "Alright then," Naruto said with a smile, "until later." He watched her walk away before rounding on the 3 in front of him, electricity crackling in his eyes once again. He whipped Hayashi out and spun it slowly. The 3 all exchanged worried looks before looking back at Naruto, who simply smiled and said, "Lesson 1, a ninja needs to be fast." The children didn't move, confusion written on all of their faces. Naruto elaborated with a smile on his face, "This is the part where you run away." "Thanks," Udon whispered before they all turned around and hightailed it away from the blonde. Naruto released a hearty laugh and jogged after them in a relaxed manner. He saw them turn around the corner and prepared to follow them, but stopping when he heard a teenage boy's voice speak up. "God damned Konoha brat," he said. Naruto narrowed his eyes and started to twirl Hayashi lightly in his hand. He glanced around the corner of the alley, his eyes narrowing even further upon what he saw. A teen wearing a black suit with a hat making him look like a cat and a bundle on his back was holding Konohamaru by his scarf. The other 2 were scared and holding each other while Konohamaru openly struggled and cried in the stranger's grip. "Kankuro, just drop him!" A blonde girl with 4 ponytails in her hair scolded. She was wearing a periwinkle outfit with fishnet attire underneath it, and a large black board was on her back. The boy, Kankuro, turned to face her. "Ah, come on, Temari," he said. "I'm just going to teach the brat some manners." "I don't think Konohamaru asked you to teach him anything," Naruto said as he walked into the alleyway, Hayashi spinning slowly, but almost impossible for someone to determine what it was. The three children all cried his name in relief, but the two strangers simply locked their eyes on him. "Why don't you just butt out, punk?" Kankuro asked him. Temari eyed the blonde in front of her hungrily, like a predator stalking its prey. "He's hot," Temari thought with a grin. Naruto looked between the two before sighing and continued to spin Hayashi. "I will only ask you once again, please put the boy down," the blonde said, his electric blue eyes narrowing into a glare. Kankuro didn't miss a beat. "What are you going to do if I don't oof?" Kankuro grunted out as Naruto suddenly released Hayashi, and it flew directly into the black-clad teen's stomach, freeing Konohamaru from his grasp as he sailed 10 feet down the alleyway. Konohamaru and the others ran to Naruto's side, cowering behind his legs while Temari looked horrified at Kankuro's winded position. Naruto held his hand out, and instantly Hayashi was in his hold once again. Kankuro hacked up blood, wincing with each cough, and Naruto instantly felt guilty. Hayashi was designed to fight beings that would rival Asgardians, not humans with elemental abilities. Temari was kneeling at the boy's side as he started to stand, keeping her eyes and senses open to prepare to defend him. "Gah! That's cough it. Why, you're dead!" Kankuro grunted out. He reached for his bandaged pack and Temari gasped. "You're going to try and use Crow? You're barely breathing as it is," she exclaimed. Before Kankuro could even reply, a hand appeared under his arm and he was hoisted to his feet by the blonde that had attacked him. "The girl is right," Naruto said, pulling Kankuro's arm over his shoulders and keeping him upright. "You need medical attention. I apologize for my attack. I forget Hayashi is made of materials Midgarda, Earth doesn't, no wait. Ugh, let's just go." "Why are you helping me?" Kankuro asked in confusion. Temari put Kankuro's other arm over her shoulder and helped take his weight. Before Naruto could answer, a red-haired boy appeared in swirling sands in front of them. On the left side of his head was a red tattoo of the kanji for love. His eyes had what was either black makeup or severe insomnia, making the boy look like a raccoon. He wore a giant gourd on his back and was dressed in brown shinobi clothes, a white sash draped over him diagonally. The two on his left froze, while Naruto simply placed his free hand over Hayashi's handle, just in case. "Kankuroi are a disgrace to our village," the boy with red hair said. His green eyes showed madness within them and Naruto tensed, his hand gripping firmly around the handle of his hammer. Naruto nearly attacked him when he said, "I should just kill you." Sorry Jigara cough. Kankuro managed to get out, just meeting the locals. "Humph," Gaara replied, not entirely impressed with his excuse. His eyes drifted to Naruto, and he suddenly gripped his head. "Run away! Run away now! I don't like him! We have to leave now!" A voice cried out in his mind as Gaara kept his eyes on the blonde to his brother's right. He remained silent for a moment before speaking quietly. "Get him fixed. Then get back to the hotel." "Why yes, Gaara," Temari stuttered out. Naruto held his glare on Gaara, making the boy flinch again before he vanished in a sand shunshin. Naruto looked questioningly at the two with him, but dropped his question when Kankuro suddenly began hacking blood up again. The two blondes supporting the makeup-wearing boy looked at each other and nodded, rushing to the hospital as quick as they could. "Your brother should be fine within a day," the nurse outside Kankuro's room said to Temari. The Suna Kunoichi sighed in relief and thanked her, walking back to sit next to the blonde that was idly polishing his hammer. "I'm sorry about your brother," he said to her, breaking the uneasy silence going between them. "I was more concerned about our Hokage's grandson at the moment." "The boy," he threatened. "Oh, that figures, damn it, Kankuro!" Temari swore under her breath as she crossed her arms and sat back in her chair. Her eyes drifted to the blonde that was idly cleaning his hammer, and she blushed as her eyes went from his hands to his toned biceps. They were almost mouth-wateringly perfect. It wasn't even funny. She itched to touch them, massage them, and feel them hold her. "So why are you in Konoha?" His voice asked, breaking the girl from her previous thoughts and her blush darkening as she realized she was thinking about a complete stranger. She looked up at his electric blue eyes, seeing the question continue to echo through his eyes. Chunin exams, she answered as she got lost in his eyes. A small musing sound came from the blonde next to her, and she continued to examine him. His attire was strange, but then again he was a Konoha shinobi. His headband was visible around his right thigh, where most would keep their kunai holsters, a strange choice for someone not of her gender. "Good luck to you then," Naruto said with a smile before he realized something. "Oh, I'm Naruto Thor-san." "Thor-san?" she repeated, earning a nod. Shrugging the name aside because he was, once again, a Konoha shinobi, she introduced herself, Sabaka no Tamara, just out of curiosity. "How old are you?" 12 or 13, not really sure, Naruto replied with a shrug as he examined his hammer. "Why?" "Oh, no reason," Tamari said, while internally she was doing a happy dance in her head. "Yes. He's not too old or too young. Now to see if he's single." Before the Suna girl could ask the question fresh in her mind, the young god of thunder stood and stretched, unknowingly giving Tamari a very nice view of his backside. The blonde scratched his head and holstered his hammer before turning and taking Tamari's hand in his own. "As always, it was a pleasure meeting a lovely maiden such as yourself," Naruto said, his charming words making the Suna girl flush bright red, which only increased when he lightly pecked the back of her hand. The blonde demigod released her hand and left, leaving a very aroused Tamari behind. A week passed before Naruto found himself standing outside of the academy that hardly taught him anything with his two teammates flanking him. He stood tall and strong, excitement dancing across his face. "Let's get it over with then," Sasuke grunted, walking into the academy. They walked up to the second floor, only to be confused when they noticed the many threes starting the room numbers. 2 genin were blocking the room they were supposed to enter, and just as Sasuke started towards them, Naruto's hand shot out and grabbed his shoulder. "Hold, friend," Naruto whispered, having a strange feeling come over him. "This doesn't feel right, it feels as though it is an illusion." Furrowing his brows, Sasuke looked at the room number with his Sharingan. His eyes widened when he realized Naruto was right. It was a genjutsu cast over the whole floor. The Uchiha glanced over at the unnerved demigod and thought, but how did he notice the genjutsu before me? Did he really get that much stronger? "He's right," Sakura whispered, having performed a small release of the genjutsu. "What do we do now?" "We go up the stairs," Sasuke said in response, moving past the girl with buns in her hair and nearly knocking her over. Naruto diverted his movements to catch her and steady her on her feet. Giving the girl a friendly smile, Naruto noticed the green-clad boy with large eyebrows and a bowl hairstyle stopping a dark-skinned red-headed Kumo genin from attacking one of the boys standing in the doorway. "Thanks," the girl he still held by her shoulders whispered. Naruto looked back at her and smiled again. "Anytime, good luck to you and your teammates," he said before releasing her and jogging up the steps after his team. The other 2 members of Team 7 waited with annoyance written on their faces at the top of the stairs for him. The girl he had left behind was shortly joined by the green-clad genin and a boy with feminine features and pearl-white eyes. "Tenten? Is he a problem?" the pearly-eyed boy asked his teammate. Tenten shook her head. "No, Niji," she said, glancing back at the blonde that steadied her as he got scolded by a pink-haired girl. She turned to face her teammates when she noticed her green-clad friend had vanished. She whipped around looking for him, scowling when she saw him jogging up the steps that the blonde had vanished up to. With a groan, Tenten and Niji went after their eccentric teammate. "Wait!" the green-clad boy cried when he locked eyes on Team 7. They all turned, Naruto narrowing his electric blue eyes and his hand hovering over Hayashi's handle. The boy glanced at Naruto and Sasuke before turning to Sakura and grabbing her hands in his own. "My name is Rock Lee," he greeted, a friendly smile on his face. "Will you please go out with me? I'll protect you with my life." Naruto allowed a smile to cover his face, glad that the boy didn't want to start a fight and only wished to ask his former crush out. Sasuke didn't seem to care, arrogantly keeping a bored look on his face, but Sakura looked flat out disgusted. She pulled her hands back and shuddered in disgust. "No way!" "Your sword," she said, jumping behind her 2 stronger teammates, as if they would shield her from Lee's weirdness. Lee's head slumped in rejection before he snapped his head up and looked at the Uchiha heir. The large eyebrow boy looked him over once before pointing at him with suspicion. You are Uchiha Sasuke, yes? Yeah, why? Sasuke asked with narrowed eyes. Lee nodded, his face going completely serious, before he walked about 5 feet away and settled in a stance so his right hand was behind him and his left was extended in a come-hither motion. I wish to prove my strength against the Rookie of the Year of the newest class, Lee said. Sasuke grunted, keeping his hands in his pockets. You have nothing interesting about you, he replied. Why should I bother with a weakling such as yourself? Sasuke, wait. Naruto tried to butt in and inform his teammate about the green-clad boy's speed, only to be unheard as Lee went on. My current teammate is the strongest genin in Konoha. I wish to see if your skills are on par with his, as many in the village have said. TCH, your funeral, Sasuke said, settling into a fighting stance. He activated his Sharingan and smirked, ready whenever you are, freak. Lee nodded and blurred out of sight, reappearing in front of a very shocked Sasuke. He leapt into the air and spun his leg out, exclaiming, Leaf Whirlwind. Sasuke was kicked in the face and sent skidding backwards, almost knocking Lee's teammates over. He hopped back to his feet and prepared to rush Lee when Naruto stepped in his way. Upset that the blonde would interfere with his fight, Sasuke said, Get out of my way, dope. Nay, Sasuke, Naruto replied with a shake of his head, his hand resting on the handle of his hammer. This is a bad idea. We have little time until the first test begins, and I doubt arriving beaten and bruised would strike fear into our future opponents. Get out of the way, Sasuke said again, his hand moving to his kunai holster. Naruto's eyes narrowed and his hand gripped Hayashi's handle. The Uchiha noticed this and saw the electricity dance across Naruto's eyes. I have no qualms about dragging you there myself, team, the blonde growled, but if you insist on fighting someone, fight me. Fight me and Hayashi with your pitiful kunai. Sasuke and Naruto held their glare before Sasuke put his kunai away and deactivated his Sharingan. He stood straight and crossed his arms. You're right. I shouldn't waste time on a weakling like him. Cha! Go Sasuke-kun! Sakura cheered, pumping her fist into the air. Naruto sighed and released his hammer's handle, turning and walking down the hallway towards the main testing room. The Uchiha and Pinkette followed their teammate, the former convincing himself he quit the fight to keep his moves secret, while the latter was curious about their blonde teammate's new intellect. Ever since Nami no Kuni, Naruto has seemed smarter, and Sakura can't figure out how that is possible. The 3 members of Team 7 left Lee to be scolded by Tenten and insulted by Niji. Tenten and Niji then inquired about the blonde member of the Uchiha's team, to which Lee replied that he believed the blonde was the dobe of the year, Uzumaki Naruto. Tenten filed this information away while Niji merely scoffed, and stated how sad it was the Hokage would allow the foolish prankster to take the exams. Team 7 was stopped outside the hallway to the first exam by their sensei. Kakashi smiled at all of them and reminded them that the exams were a team's test of camaraderie in the first 2 parts. Sasuke ignored the reminder, Sakura absorbed every word her sensei said, and Naruto merely kept his face calm. Once he had finished warning and lecturing them, and subtly asking where Sasuke got a bruise from, Kakashi vanished in a puff of smoke. The 3 members of Team 7 braced themselves as they entered room 301 for their first exam, preparing for anything. No sooner had they entered the room did they feel every eye of the many genin within fall on them. A strange feeling Sasuke recognized as killing intent came over all of them, only vanishing when Naruto pulled Hayashi out and destroying the desk at the front of the room with a single swing. The many people in the room glanced at the obliterated desk and looked back at the blonde, wondering what type of jutsu it was he used to do such a thing. Fools, Naruto muttered, placing Hayashi back on his hip and turning back to his team. A sudden purple blur rushed past him and latched onto Sasuke's back, revealing the body of one Yamanaka Ino, who then exclaimed, My Sasuke-kun is here! Yay, Ino-pig, get off Sasuke-kun! Sakura shrieked. Naruto sighed and nervously kept his hand near Hayashi's handle, his attention going to the 2 approaching forms when a lazy voice spoke to him. Oh? Sasuke and Sakura are here too? Naruto Shikamaru asked as he and Akimichi Choji walked up to the 2 members of Team 7, not recognizing Naruto at all. Troublesome. I knew I recognized that scent. Another brash male voice said as a feral-looking boy with a white puppy in his jacket walked up with a pearl-eyed girl wearing a beige coat and a boy with a high-collared jacket and 2 black circular glasses hiding his features. The feral boy was Inuzuka Kiba, his pup being Akamaru, and his 2 teammates Hyuga Hinata and Aburame Shino. Kiba continued, so the gang's all here. Wait, where's Naruto? Baka too scared to show up? Yeah, come to think of it, I don't see him anywhere, Ino commented as she dropped off Sasuke's back. The blonde in question pushed off the wall he leaned against and stepped into the group. Ah, none of you recognize little ol' me? Naruto asked with a grin on his face, the smile widening as everyone turned and gaped at him. I haven't changed that much, have I? And Naruto-kun? Hinata asked, her face turning a bright red upon taking in Naruto's new features. Her not-so-secret crush had become much more attractive, and it was all she could do to keep from passing out then and there. The blonde demigod smiled at Hinata and nodded, Ohio Hinata-chan. I haven't seen any of you ever since team assignments. Geez Dobe, drop the henge already. Kiba scoffed, rolling his eyes. Before Naruto could assure he wasn't wearing a henge, Akamaru yipped several times and Kiba's eyes widened and his smirk dropped. The Inuzuka swallowed heavily as he took in his partner's words and stepped back next to the Aburame, who was trying to soothe his very excited hive. Shino's bugs have been acting up since Naruto approached them, as though he was the source of a pure power tastier than chakra. Naruto, wow. You sure clean up nice. Ino admitted with a small blush on her face. What happened to you? I took a stroll across the Rainbow Bridge, finding myself and my kin, Naruto said, reciting a small poem he had made up on the spot. My father Thor granted me power, and with my hammer at my side, no longer shall I cower. Whoa, intense, Shikamaru muttered. Choji next to him stopped eating and stared with white on his face at the blonde with the hammer at his waist. You should all learn to be quiet, a silver-haired teen said as he approached. Rookies like yourselves don't want to draw attention. Oh, and who are you? Naruto asked, his hand going to his hammer. Friend or foe? Friend, I assure you, the teen replied. My name is Kabuto. Naruto Thor-san, Naruto greeted, holding his hand out. The others looked at him with confusion written on their faces, and Kabuto even seemed to blink a few times as he shook Naruto's hand. Anyway, Kabuto continued, I take it this is your first time at the exams? Yes it is, Sakura replied. Is it your first time as well, Kabuto-san? Kabuto smiled sheepishly. No, actually it's my 7th time. Naruto's friendly smile faltered slightly. A lesson fresh from Hogan returned to the forefront of his mind. If someone seems extremely weak, it is probably a cover for their superior strength. The best asset one has in the shinobi line of work is deception. This lesson was further confirmed in the God of Thunder's mind as Kiba brashly said, Damn man, you've gotta really suck then. Or you have other motives, Naruto mused quietly, loud enough however for Kabuto to catch it. The two held an unwavering stare for a moment before Kabuto scratched the back of his head. You've got me, Kabuto said. I've actually been gathering data for the past 7 years for a client. Hokage-sama has given me permission to do so, as he is the only one with the knowledge of the reasons to my client's wishes. I see, Naruto replied, not fully believing him, but letting it drop for now. How do you show this information? My shinobi info cards, Kabuto said, pulling a deck of black slips of paper from his pocket. All I have to do is channel my chakra into a specific card and I get info on all the shinobi in question. Want an example? Show me a Suna genin named Gaara, Naruto instantly demanded. Ever since their little exchange, the blonde was very unnerved by the lack of emotion shown to the red-headed boy's teammate by him. Gaara. You know his name? That's no fun. The silver-haired teen playfully pouted, pulling a white slip of paper out. Sabaku no Gaara, genin of Sunagakure no Sato. His teammates are his older siblings Sabaku no Kankuro and Sabaku no Temari. Their team sensei is Baki. That's all I've got on his team. He has done almost, 20 B-ranked and A-ranked missions. He's never been injured on any of the missions. Not even a scratch. Naruto's eyes narrowed at this. How could someone go through all of those missions and not sustain a single injury? He was brought out of his musing when Sasuke's voice spoke up. Give me the info you have on Rock Lee and Uzumaki Naruto of Konoha. Everyone looked at the boy, wondering why he would need information on his own teammate when Naruto growled, "It's Naruto Thor-san now, team." "Whatever, dope," Sasuke replied, looking at Kabuto expectantly. Rock Lee," the teen said, holding the card up. "He's teamed with the previous year's Rookie of the Year Hyuga Niji and the Kunoichi of the Year Tenten. Their sensei is Meito Guy. He's done about 30 C-ranked missions, and 15 B-ranked missions. His genjutsu and ninjutsu skills are zip, while his taijutsu skills are off the charts." Damn. Kabuto put the card away before pulling out another which produced the image of the blonde before him. Naruto Thor-san. Teamed with Rookie of the Year Uchiha Sasuke and Kunoichi of the Year Hareno Sakura. He's done nothing too noticeable except for the C-ranked mission turned a rank to Nami no Kuni. All I know is he managed to learn the forbidden shadow clone technique. Everything else about him is limited to his being the dobe of the year. Sasuke's eyes narrowed in suspicion when Kabuto failed to mention anything concerning Naruto's hammer and asked, "What do you know about his weapons?" "Like I said, not much is known 'cause there's nothing too impressive," Kabuto said before glancing at the blonde, "but I've been wrong before." Before any more could be said on the matter, a tall man decked out in all black kicked the door open and stepped in. He gave off the aura of superiority and experience as well as intimidation. Many genin already began trembling under his gaze. After he scanned the room, the man spoke in a drill sergeant-like tone, "All right, you maggots. My name is Marino Ibiki and I'm your proctor for the first exam. Everyone form a line, grab a number, and then sit your ass down." "And who destroyed my desk?" Naruto chuckled and crossed his arms. This was going to be fun. "I did, good sir," Naruto said, stepping forward, his hand resting on the handle of his hammer. "I wasn't aware that it was yours." Ibiki narrowed his eyes and glared down at the blonde before grumbling, "You've earned yourself the pleasure of taking the first number, punk." "I'll admit, it was kind of balls of you to step forward like that though." "Thank you," the young Asgardian replied with a smirk. He took the first number and sat down in the direct center of the first row, as per the arrangements. Naruto remained silent as he took a glance around him, noting the lack of decor on the room's walls. He then noticed the stack of papers on the other desk in front of him, and a groan came from his throat. A pale-skinned blonde on his left nudged him in the arm and he turned to look at her. She was a Kumo Shinobi, based on her headband, and her face had a feline build to it. Her green eyes narrowed at him before she hissed, "Keep your displeasure to yourself, rookie." "Methinks ye have me village confused with another," Naruto whispered back, turning his attention forward again. "'Tis a free land here, one can voice his displeasures." "Smartass," the girl snapped back. Her unease in being in an alien environment was evident in her actions. The attractive blonde next to her didn't help with her Bijuu's need being voiced every 3 seconds. Naruto snickered, unknowing as to how he got such a good comeback to the girl's words. A figure sat beside him, turning his attention from the Kumo Kunoichi to the newcomer. A smile crossed the god of thunder's face, and he greeted the girl quietly, "Ohio Hinata-chan. Fancy meeting you here." "Kei konnichiwa, Naruto-kun," Hinata greeted back shyly as she felt her blush increase tenfold, and started to fiddle with her fingers. Naruto smiled at the strange girl before relaxing back in his chair. A moment later, Naruto felt a tap on his shoulder. He turned to see the face of Sabaka no Tamari, who smiled slightly at him. "Hey handsome," she greeted with a small smile. "Small world." "Not really," Naruto replied with a small grin, "but still a pleasure to be seated near yet another beautiful maiden such as you, Tamari-chan." Well, punk," Ibiki said as the last of the genin went to take his seat in the back. "Been a while since I've seen a ladies' man like you at an exam." "A what?" Naruto repeated in confusion as he looked ahead at the proctor. The black-clad man shook his head in disbelief before he addressed the room as a whole. "All right, you maggots," Ibiki shouted, making everyone sit up straight in their seats. "Keep your traps shut, 'cause I'm only saying this once. The first exam is a written test of knowledge. There are 9 written response questions. The 10th will be given by me after 45 minutes has passed. There are a few stipulations though. If you get caught cheating 5 times, you fail. Every team starts with 30 points. For each cheat noticed you lose 6 points. If one member of the team fails, you all fail. Tests are face down on your desks. Begin." The sound of papers flipping over before pencils started scribbling everywhere was loud, but nothing Naruto couldn't block out. The test's hidden assignment was easy as day to see through. Ibiki had given them a limit as to how many times they could cheat. Not once had he said they couldn't cheat. After thanking his mother and father for heightening his observation skills, Naruto wondered how he would get the answers when he recalled a spell Heimdall had given him, and a small smile crossed his face. He took a deep breath before chanting in Asgardian, "Hear me, O guardian of the rainbow. Assist me in this quest, and one favor I shall owe." The blonde Asgardian was unaware of the strange looks he was getting from those near him. His words were a foreign language, but he understood them all too well. He silently thanked Heimdall when he opened his eyes and saw his own face in the third person, his normally electric blue irises glowing golden as Heimdall lent him his eyesight. Naruto's attention went to the boy with veins popping out around his eyes. He was writing furiously, and Naruto managed to get all of the answers from him easily enough. He went back to look at his own body, slightly disturbed and fascinated to see himself writing the answers down as he stared blankly ahead. When he had finished and answered all of the questions, Naruto silently thanked the guardian again before he closed his eyes and slumped forward, dead to the world while recovering from the risky spell. Minutes passed before Naruto regained consciousness. He sat up and rubbed his eyes, pulling Hayashi out to look at them in the reflection of the sleek Yoryu metal. The demigod put his hammer back at his side, not noticing the wide eyes on the cat-like girl on his left. She had read text concerning the hammer the boy wielded, believing them to be only myths of the earliest settlers of Kumogakure. If that was what she thought it was, she had to alert the Raikage immediately. Naruto flipped his paper over and sighed out of boredom as he rested his head in his hands. The demigod silently wished something would happen to cure his boredom. A whisper in his head suddenly made the boy brighten and a grin appear on his face. The head examiner had his eyes focused on someone he was yelling at to get out, otherwise he would have seen the gleam in the electric blue eyes of the boy right in front of him. Naruto held a half-ram seal in one hand, subconsciously noticing one of the Chunin examiners marking something on their clipboard, and whispered another spell. "Time is short, day is long, have the mortal Ibiki sing and dance this song." Ibiki felt a glaze come over his mind, causing it to fog before he suddenly threw both of his arms out, hands flat down. He knew it was a genjutsu, but for some reason couldn't break it. His mouth was moving and his voice was speaking, singing foreign words against his will. The head of Anbuint had never felt more humiliated in his life, trapped in his mind while his body sang and danced to some song called Macarena. The genin testing and the other Chunin examiners stared at him in disbelief save for a few. Aoto genin wearing a hataite similar to the Nidame's was holding his stomach as he laughed, and a kunoichi with long black hair wearing a kusa headband was giggling into her hand. The Inuzuka heir was pounding his fist on the table, and Kumo Kunoichi with red hair was laughing aloud, and the damned blonde right in front of him was lip-singing the words he was singing with a smile, revealing it was he that had entranced him. Ibiki continued to sing and dance until 45 minutes had passed and Naruto released the spell. No sooner had he done so did the head examiner slam his hands in front of the smirking blonde and snarled, "I'm going to get you for that." "But you're such a good dancer, Ibiki-san," the boy replied with a smile. Ibiki merely growled again before pushing back to a standing position and looked over all the smirking and snickering genin with a furious glare. "Is something funny?" he asked in a deadly quiet voice promising pain while releasing his killing intent. The genin all silenced and he smirked. "That's what I thought. No 45 minutes have passed, so it's time for the 10th exam. Before I give the last question though, I should warn you, answer incorrectly, and you will remain a genin for the rest of your life." "A collective what?" Accompanied with shocked faces crossed the genin, making Ibiki smile even more. Asuna Kunoichi behind the shit stain, as he deemed the blonde Jinchūriki that hypnotized him, stood and exclaimed, "You can't do that." "Oh, but I can." Ibiki lied with a smirk. "You see, all of your kages signed agreements to allow me to keep whoever I want back. Basically, your fate rests in my hands unless you quit now and try again next time." As the Suna Kunoichi sat down with confusion written on her face, he elaborated, "Simply raise your hand and you forfeit the exam. Well, you forfeit your team too, but that's your problem. Any takers?" Immediately 4 hands, none of which belonged to the same team, shot up. Chunin examiners called out the seated genins' numbers along with their respective teammates. Some cried, some snarled in outrage, and some simply waited until they left the room to take the forfeiters down. More hands slowly shot up from around the room, causing the numbers to drop from a large 200-something genin to barely 100. From her spot in the back, Haruno Sakura struggled with herself on whether she should forfeit or not. If I do give up, Sasuke-kun will have to suffer for another year until we can try again, she thought. Her inner voice, Ain as she named her, spoke up, yeah. But Naruto and Sasuke-kun can handle whatever problems we come up against with no problem if we continue. Naruto Baka would be in the same position as me, though. We'd be nothing but dead weight if we continued as we were. Hello. Have you seen what Naruto-kun can do? He's got a freaking battle hammer that smashes walls with a single swing. Remember that training exercise against Kakashi-sensei where he used a type of electricity attack? Kakashi-sensei formed a clone and took him aside for some special training after that, remember? Oh yeah? Meanwhile, up front, Naruto was frowning. His mother had taught him that no matter what, a leader wouldn't risk something that could diminish her country's ability to defend itself, something his father confirmed during a lesson in battle strategy. The blonde god of thunder crossed his arms over his chest as he thought over what Ibiki said. It had to be an empty threat, Naruto mused. Even if Sarutobi Baka did sign something like that, the council would stand against it and demand the paper would be torn up. Other villages would be in the same position. This is definitely a bluff. Hold your ground, friends, Naruto said, standing from his seat with his hammer in his clenched hand, his narrowed eyes locked on the head examiner as the, hopefully, final forfeiting team left the room. Ibiki returned the look with a blank one crossed with curiosity and slight anger, most likely from his prank, before Naruto continued, no leader in his right mind, be they king, queen, kage or otherwise, would chance diminishing their fighting forces. Your words are nothing to scoff at, be they true. You have a silver tongue my uncle must have granted upon you, long before he switched his ways, and I shall not stand for it. I am Naruto Thor's son and I never surrender. Especially not to lying fools such as yourself. Ibiki mentally swore profanity after profanity at the blonde as many in the room regained hope and courage to take the final question. The Hyuga girl that was about to crack under his gaze now had a glimmer of hope in her eyes, and her shaky hand that started to rise rested atop her desk as her will held strong. The INT head smirked as even more sat up straighter in their seats before he looked back at the blonde. With a small sign of admiration in his eyes, Ibiki thought, so the Yandame's heir proves himself, and here I thought the prankster was all talk. He might just be a very good Hokage if he makes it that far. Guess we'll see if you're right, punk, Ibiki replied before looking back at the class. Final time I'm gonna ask? Anyone else want to give up? Naruto also turned and held his hammer tighter and spoke again. If any still have doubts, the words he speak are nothing more than lies. No one man should have the power over the future of a foreign nation. Hold strong. Ibiki bit back a smile before looking at the Chunin, many of whom were looking at the blonde with shock and awe, and looked back at the room saying, well, I guess I have nothing better than to pass you. Before Naruto could say anything else, he whipped his head back to Ibiki with wide eyes. Ibiki, say what? You gave a good speech, kid. Sit down and I'll explain, the examiner said with a smile. Naruto nodded dumbly and sat down, confusion written on his features. Ibiki laughed quietly at all of the confusion on the genins' faces before he spoke again. The main point of this exam was to test your information gathering skills under pressure. The ones that failed obviously needed more practice. But what about the 10th question? Yamanaka Ino asked as she spoke up. I mean, what is it exactly? The 10th question was a test of your camaraderie, bravery and leadership skills, Ibiki explained as he started undoing his headband. Once he had finished, many of the rookie 9 had gone green, save for Sasuke and Naruto, both of whom seeing worse. There were holes, scars, and even burns on the scarred man's scalp, making it slightly grotesque for many who looked upon it. After relishing in their disgusted faces, Ibiki continued, information is the most vital treasure anyone could obtain. Many will do whatever they can to get it, like threatening your friends and family, or even yourself. By staying in the room, you showed you not only cared for your teammates, but you'd be willing to sacrifice your future for them. Hence, I say again, you all pass. While many absorbed the reply the examiner had given them, Ibiki noticed a black blur approaching through the window and sighed. He stepped back as the blur crashed through the window and 2 kunai impaled themselves in the ceiling with a black banner dangling from it. Written in white was, "Presenting the second test examiner, the Y and single Mitarashi Enko," and in front of it was a scantily dressed woman. She had purple hair done up in a pineapple-like ponytail, and wore a fishnet shirt that revealed her impressive assets to the world underneath a tan trench coat and above a rust-colored skirt. She had ANBU grade shin guards over her sandals and a sadistic grin on her face. "All right, maggots, let's Enko stopped in her own speech as she counted the remaining genin before rounding on the scarred man. "Ibiki-chan. You let almost 100 gaki through? Someone's getting old, eh?" "Oh, shut up, Enko," Ibiki sighed out. "Can't you feel the tension? You're early." "She can be early all she wants. She's in hot," Kiba shouted from the back of the room, many boys nodding their heads in agreement, Naruto and Sasuke being among the few that nodded their heads slightly, trying to remain inconspicuous. Enko rounded on the group with a grin. "I don't know who said that, but I will find out," and when I do, she started before a snake bit onto a drooling Chunin examiner's crotch, causing the man to scream in pain before falling to the floor, unconscious. Enko grinned again as the many boys paled and covered themselves, Naruto being among the few that didn't. He did wince as a phantom pain from training with Hogan back in Asgard came to the forefront of his mind. "Well, you get the idea," Enko said with a shrug before smiling again. "Okay, Gaki, follow me to the second exam. Anyone 15 minutes late fails." She leapt out the window, many boys struggling to get up without whacking their problems against the desks they tried to free themselves from. Naruto waited for Sasuke, who had a slight flush on his face, and Sakura, who seemed depressed over something, before he smashed a gaping hole in the wall with Hayashi and they leapt through it, the rest of the genin following shortly after them. After the teams who arrived on time made it, those late were instantly failed and sent away from the exam training ground. Naruto, Sasuke, and Sakura looked up at the gate around the large forest with wide eyes. Many teams followed their example. "I don't recall this training ground," Naruto muttered. The other 2 members of Team 7 nodded in agreement with his statement. Enko smiled at their odd looks and mentally counted to 3 before a roar echoed from the forest. Sasuke and Sakura took a step back in surprise while the blonde grinned and his hammer left his waist to his hand, electricity crackling around it. "Now that sounds fun!" he shouted eagerly, earning looks of surprise from many of the genin also startled by the roar. Enko laughed, earning all of the attention, before grinning. "Glad you think that now," she said to the blonde that shouldered his battle hammer with an eager gleam in his eyes, "because this is known as the most dangerous training ground to all the jonin in Konohagakure, me notwithstanding. It's known officially as Training Ground 44, but unofficially it's called the Forest of Death. There's tigers the size of elephants, immense insects, and even a few uncharted man-eating plants in there, I think. The base of this exam is to obtain 2 scrolls." As she said this, she held 2 scrolls out, one with the kanji for earth and another for the kanji for heaven, earth and heaven. You will start with one, random of course, and earn another one by fighting another group for theirs. "Oh, but first you've gotta sign these." Some Chunin began passing papers out, many signing their names as soon as they got them. Tenten, concerned as soon as she read the paper in her hand, suddenly exclaimed, "This is a life or death waiver." "Well duh," Enko said while many of those that signed instantly paled. Noticing this, Enko grinned and continued, "Geez, you all act like we're stupid enough to send most of you to your deaths and let your country try to pin the blame on us. Well, this way they can't." While Naruto signed, he allowed a small smirk to cover his face as he spoke softly to himself. "Please, me teachers would kick my ass if I arrived home because I fell in battle against a mortal. This will be easy." No sooner had the words left his mouth did a kunai fly past his cheek and cut along one of his whiskers. A weight became evident on his body and Naruto grunted softly as Enko smirked and wrapped her arms around his neck. The blonde demigod flushed red when he felt the woman press her assets into his back and whispered hotly into his ear, "I love when overconfident gaki like you go into the forest. You never come out, and your sweet blood is donated to people who need it more than you like me." After saying that, she slowly licked the blood off his cheek, creeping out and arousing the boy. Many girls that had seen the blonde glared at the older woman in jealousy of being so close to the attractive demigod, while most boys shuddered even further in fear. Attacking the jewels are one thing, but licking blood afterwards, that's so not right. Before Anko could release the aroused teen in her grasp, a taller kunoichi leaned over her, and her insanely long tongue held out the kunai. Naruto was disgusted by the tongue, but the disgust faded quickly as Anko pressed herself against him again. The purple-haired kunoichi smirked and took the kunai with the snarky comment of, "Thanks, but don't sneak up on people like that. It'll get you killed." "Of course," the kunoichi replied with a smirk. "I couldn't help myself. You sliced off my beloved hair, and the boy's blood just got me so excited." "Understandable," Anko said, hugging the blonde to her again, this time openly choking him. "If I could, I'd keep him all to myself. He's so cute and cuddly, and his blood is divine. Let me go!" Naruto shouted, sick of being held around the neck like a toy and tapping into his true strength, sending those around him back 5 feet with the explosion of wind and lightning. As the twister died down, Naruto took in some deep breaths before finally having recomposed himself. He handed his paper in to a Chunin examiner, gaping at him in shock, before returning to his team and entering a tent where Sasuke received a scroll and a number for their gate. As they stood outside of their gate, Anko reappeared hugging the demigod again. Naruto scowled in anger and reached for his hammer, stopping as a kunai appeared at his neck. Anko grinned and spoke softly to him again. "You got guts, kiddo. But be sure I'll get you back for knocking me on my ass. Seems as though you enjoy being knocked around like a common slut." Naruto shot back with a growl as his eyes narrowed and lightning danced across them. Anko's sadistic grin widened and she pressed the tip of her kunai into his neck as her pupilless hazel eyes narrowed in anger. "You're pushing your luck, Gaki," she whispered, "but I like that. I'll be watching you." Anko vanished back to the main testing room and spoke into the microphone, sending her voice to many of the teams outside their gates. "There's a few rules I forgot to mention. Don't open your scroll until you receive both and are at the tower, or else. You have 5 days to complete this exam. I saw a Kimichi and didn't want to deal with his whining. Oh, and anyone that brings me a vial of the blood of my favorite blonde Gaki from Konoha gets a bonus." Naruto groaned while his 2 teammates scowled. That made them a main target, and against 20-something teams that was definitely bad. Before the buzzer went off, Anko gave one last helpful piece of advice. "One more thing. Just don't die." The buzzer sounded and the genin all stormed into the forest. Teams found a safe area to plan while many planned on the move. The Kumo team being one as such. A dark-skinned boy with white hair sighed as his red-haired counterpart argued with their team's captain as they ran along the forest floor. "Geez, Yujuto, you make it seem like he's actually holding Mjolnir," the girl said. Yujuto, the milky white-skinned girl on the team that had sat next to Naruto during the first exam, looked back in annoyance at her teammate. "I said it looked like Mjolnir," Karui Yujuto deadpan. Ignoring the snort of disbelief, she looked over at their male teammate and said, "Is he nearby, Omo?" Omo sighed at being brought into the conversation before nodding. There were just some times he hated being a sensory-type ninja. Yujuto nodded back before looking at Karui. "You and Omo will deal with the Uchiha and the Pinkette. If that is Mjolnir, and from what we saw at the beginning of the exam, I think it is, I might have to go two-tailed to beat him. Then we take the hammer?" Karui asked, still skeptical of what it was. Omo spoke up suddenly. "I wouldn't," he said. "Mjolnir can only be carried by those it deems worthy. If that guy picked it up, only he can hold it. We'd be better off trying to take him back to the wreckage. If he believes the message you sent via owl," Karui pointed out. Yujuto shook her head and they leapt up to the trees. The girl groaned as he Biju made itself known. "I still say you should rape his fine ass," a feminine feline-like voice purred. The pale Kumo genin shook her head and looked forward. She had a mission to complete, and a warrior to return to her home. Thanks for watching this video. Don't forget to support and follow the This Page Has Been Abandoned 93 for writing that awesome fanfic, and also make sure to comment on this story, link in the description. If you like to hear adult version of this and other stories, I'll give you link of my Patreon. See you in the next video. Goodbye.